Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, we take another and final look at the 2022 NFL draft class, including the Eagles' day 3 picks and undrafted free agency. Plus, they didn't do much in the defensive backfield. What moves could Howie Roseman make this summer and the spring? That's coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Today's edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by Bet Online, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. It's a Monday edition of the show. Gino, our first podcast since the conclusion of the 2022 NFL Draft. And man, what a fun, exhilarating, and exhausting 3 days for Eagles fans and the entire NFL world, but it's a good exhaustion for sure. And the Eagles made it so fun with Jordan Davis and A.J. Brown on day 1, Cam Jurgens and Nakobe Dean on day 2. Got a bunch of good value picks on day 3 and some undrafted free agents that we'll get into today on the show. Overall, I think a really successful weekend for the Eagles. They're seen as, and again, early draft grades are always tough to do, but Gino, I think they came out winners, and we'll take another look at it today.
I think when you look at these draft grades, like it's okay to like look at names and be like, oh yeah, like you can grade that name and say they did well.
We all know we're doing it on paper still, so just take it with a grain of salt and be responsible with it.
How I look at it though is based on fit, based on value, and coming into this draft, what did this team need? We knew that they were more than likely going to address the defensive line. We knew some way or another that wide receiver was a high priority for them. Day 1, they took care of that right away. In the fashion that we thought, though, did I think they would come out of this draft with just 5 picks? No. But if you're going to use 2 of those picks, 18 and 103, to go get A.J. Brown, you used a few more to go up and solidify that you got your guy in Jordan Davis. Quality over quantity sometimes. We always talk about swings of the bat. There are better at-bats sometimes than there are bad at-bats, Like
a 24-year-old elite receiver is worth an 18th overall pick in 101. So you got to add that as your 6th player in this class too, for sure.
Yeah, like working the count to 3-2 and then taking 11 pitches, working the pitcher. That's like a Jordan Davis one, right? Like you work the count. Like you had to get enough value to go and get him. And you did it without giving up a premium pick.
Especially in a weaker class, Gino. I was okay more with going for quality this year, and you didn't sacrifice any of your quantity in 2023 or 2024.
And that's the key, Lou. I knew that 2023 was the priority when Howie Roseman went ahead and made that move with the Saints like the rest of us did, right? And we know what they're looking at more than likely would probably be quarterback. But best case scenario now that your quarterback has literally everything you could imagine, at least 2 groups of starting offensive linemen, Lou. I mean, their second string offensive line.
I was thinking about that the other day. You have 4 or 5 that might be Andre Dillard, Nate Herbig, Jack Driscoll, Cam Jurgens. Like that's 4 or 5 that could maybe start on an offensive line.
LaRaven Clark is your swing tackle. Sua Opeta played good ball for you in moments last year. That's the key to victory for this team. And then you go out with all the premium positions that you have. I mean, just going down the list, Lou, like we talked about the other day, Zach Pascal's probably your 7th or 8th pass catcher. And for a guy who's been productive in the league, taking on that role of almost a Jason Avant, like you had referenced the other day in the live show, guys like him, guys like Boston Scott, guys like Kenny Gainwell. I used the Danny Green analogy to Boston Scott, and one of our YouTube listeners loved that analogy. But competing teams and teams that are going to make stretch runs, you look at the NBA, their 11th and 12th guys are making impact off the bench, right, Lou? I think this team is now setting itself up to where they have a solid starting 5, as in their starting offense with their elite tight end, 2 potentially elite receivers, Quez Watkins Zach Pascal, a mix of other young guys that could go and take that fifth spot. And then you have the running back core plus the offensive line. All of the pieces that we had talked about 2 years ago that we were missing, we had addressed in the last two drafts.
100%.
Devontae Smith last year, Landon Dickerson last year. You go and get A.J. Brown this year. You set yourself up with Cam Jurgens. With the age of their offensive line, with the age of their core, they're now doing it in
a long time.
Yes,
man.
They're doing it in a much better manner than
that
post 2017 Super Bowl run where it just seemed they got older, they got more Band-Aid-ish. It really seemed like no, they wrapped up this wound and they're ready to heal this thing and get ready
on
for the long
defense
run.
too, Gino. I mean, look, the defense for so long also felt like Band-Aid moves. They hadn't spent a first or second round pick on defense since 2017 before this, right? With Derek Barnett and Sidney Jones. So that's the thing. I look at this draft in 2022 and the fact that they didn't add a defensive back, it does bother me a bit, especially that second round selection. But when you think about the roles that they added with these top 4 acquisitions, it can be franchise altering. It just feels like a class that you're going to look back on, and it had a lot of your new heart and souls. You know what I mean? Like, especially on the defensive side of the football, you haven't had those kind of players with that kind of potential in a very long time. Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean. Like, when was the last time you had pieces that you just added through the draft on defense that you're like, yep, that could be our new Fletcher Cox. That could be our new Brandon Graham, Malcolm Jenkins, just the lifeblood of that defense for 10 plus years. I feel that way about Jordan Davis and about Nakobe Dean. Like, to add 2 first round talents and an elite receiver already without giving up future picks, all for a few late picks, a third, a fourth, a couple fifths. Like, you gave up a lot of picks, but to add what you did with those top 4 talents is, again, this can be a franchise altering draft, And so, again, it's tough for me to not come away with a DB, but outside of that, it's really hard to be upset with what they did in this class. And Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round made it easier to stomach that you didn't get a safety, because what he can do on the second level is very similar to what you would be asking of a versatile safety like Jenkins used to do. So Dean in round 3 makes it a lot easier too. I would have rather had Dean than a Kirby Joseph anyway, to me.
I have to agree 100% with you, Lou. And what Howie Roseman said after that second day was that they had opportunities to move down from that pick where they took Nakobe Dean and get more selections where they.
It sounds like he's going to be healthy, man. I mean, we talked on the podcast when he got picked, we're like, maybe he's going to get redshirted. Howie's talking about he's going to be ready for OTAs.
Conspiracy theory, did Howie Roseman make up the medical issue so his guy would fall to the 3rd round?
I wouldn't put it past him, bro.
What a long con that would be. But no, seriously, all joking aside, if Nakobe Dean, even if he were to miss, let's say, half the season, Lou, that guy's going to come in and be an instant impact chess piece to plug in alongside Davian Taylor, to plug alongside Kaiser White. And now with that speed up front, right, Lou? You had excuses in the past to like why the coverage wasn't as great as it was. I think with how fast that front 7 is, it's going to, I would say, lessen the burden on the back 7 where, we definitely wanted a high profile cornerback, a high profile safety. Don't get me wrong. But now you can play more of those cover 2 shells where you have a lot of things just being underneath, and it's more about the linebackers just going and rallying to the ball. And you see a lot of teams that do that. I keep referencing Buffalo. You look at Matt Milano. You look at Tremaine Edmonds as well, who they
look
have.
at the Chargers too, with their second level players.
They like to just keep things in front of them and let that front 7 eat, which I now think with Jordan Davis, with the potential of Nakobe Dean to come off the bus day 1 and be a first-round talent that you got on day 2, that right away with those 2 selections.
It's a lot of speed, man. And
it's
Hassan
a lot of
Reddick
speed
you signed in free agency too.
And it's 2 pillars to your defense. Because I don't see Nakobe Dean, if he plays at the level he played at Georgia, along with Jordan Davis as well. And Jordan Davis, I only believe, is going to pop off the tape more in Philly because they're going to allow him to get upfield more than he did really at Georgia. Man, I mean, home run just in those 2 guys.
You added 4 core pieces, Gino, on defense potentially this offseason with Kazir White, Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis, and Nakobe Dean. When was the last offseason you could say that they had that potential on that side of the football? You have it. And like you said, I love that you mentioned the speed, because you look at Kazir White, Hassan Reddick, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis at 6'7", can run a 4.75, right? And Davian Taylor, if he stays healthy, that kind of explosive ability. is far more dynamic than they've had in a long time. According to Next Gen Stats, they had the most athletic class of any team this year.
Kyron Johnson's a freak. I know you saw him down at Mobile, Lou.
Yeah, he's fast, man, off the ball. Oh my gosh.
He's undersized, but he has a grittiness to his game, and he comes off the ball.
He's undersized, but I saw him bull rushing some pretty big
Trevor
guards
Penny.
down there,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, and one-on-ones he took on Trevor Penny pretty well, and he ran near 4.4, if I'm not mistaken, at his size. And they just added guys that are now going to allow this defense to play more free and just
good because they were slow, man. They were slow. They were old. Nobody feared this defense at all. And now I don't think that's going to be the case.
I mean, dude, who's going to want to plan against that defensive front when, let's say, you run Jordan Davis in the middle at 0, you run Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox at the 3 tech, then you could put in any combination of edge rushers you want, whether it's Hassan Reddick, whether it's Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat. You can line up 4 or 5 guys on the outside and just cycle them through and have nearly a ton of mass between all of the 5 guys on the line. Have fun planning against this defense. And then you have to worry about the second level where you have guys that are ball hawk linebackers. Kaiser White had a fantastic year in terms of tackles. Then Nakobe Dean, who led that Georgia team in terms of just overall mentality, overall go out there and set the tone. He's going to be a fan favorite, Lou. And then Davian Taylor, you could keep him fresh where he doesn't have to play 55 snaps a game. That might be the biggest benefit of them all is that you can now keep all of these guys fresh, cycle them in and out like you're going to do on offense. The defense now can have that little toy chest that they play with. Like they're just not playing with the same 1 or 2 toys. Like, no, Christmas just came for Jonathan Gannon this offseason, and he's going to be able to do a lot of different things in that front, do a lot of different things with those linebackers, and allow a veteran safety in Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, who's gotten better, to sit in those 2 high shells where they're not forced to play middle of the field single high because, frankly, that's not what they do well. But
and you
let
do still
them
have
do
a
well
true
what they
CB1.
can.
Yes. And you still have Darius Slay
and a top 5
CB1.
nickel in the league.
Yeah. So look, this defense has a lot more pieces than 2021. But again, Gino, CB2 is still a hole right now. I don't love Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps as a safety tandem. We'll get into coming up next what they can still do in the defensive backfield. Howie Roseman himself in his press conference this weekend did recognize there is still work to be done with the DBs. We'll get into some potential free agent and trade options coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's Bet Online. They're your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NBA playoffs that are in the second round right now. You've got the start of the MLB season, the push for the playoffs in the NHL. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports. The Eagles, by the way, a pretty big history of esports with Jay Ajayi and Boston Scott. So much more at betonline.net. Make sure you head to the website today or use their mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, Eagles fans, thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. He's Gino Camilleri. I'm Lou DiBiase. Check us out on any podcast platform 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, in video form as well on YouTube. And hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnBirds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. Taking a look back here today on this Monday edition of the show on the 2022 NFL draft class. Gino, we talked about it segment 1. It just feels like the Eagles added a lot of franchise-altering players this year with Jordan Davis, with A.J. Brown, potentially with Cam Jurgens when Jason Kelce retires, with Nakobe Dean. But again, they didn't really add a difference maker in the defensive backfield. Even on day 3, they were so close to Tariq Woolen. 1 pick in front of them. Seattle took them. They moved down right after. You texted me too. It's like, they are probably going to take them. Right. So there's work to be done. You have a true CB1 in Darius Slay. You've got a top 5 nickel corner in Avonte Maddox. They're not completely screwed back there, but CB2 is a glaring hole right now. Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps, I don't know. They kind of give me Nate Allen, Kurt Coleman vibes in the early 2010s. There's work to be done. When you think about like what they could do now, like the LeGarrette Blount move in 2017 when the board didn't fall for them in that draft with running back. Last year with cornerback again, they brought in Steven Nelson in the summer. What is that kind of move you could see now after this draft?
Well, I think there's one part of the draft that we have yet to talk about, and it's the undrafted free agent
That's a good
pool,
point
where
too. Yeah.
they brought in some decently talented players who should get all the chance in the world to make this roster. At the safety position, one of my personal favorites out of Middle Tennessee State University, Reed Blankenship, absolute great name. They bring him in out of this undrafted free agent
He better
pool.
be able to blanket coverage. You know what I mean? That's a pretty
Yeah,
good name if he can be
absolutely.
good.
And then at the corner position, they shelled out some pretty hefty guarantees. They go out and get Alabama's Josh Jobe, who I believe could challenge for that second corner position. Mario Goodrich out of Clemson, who was in all of the top of the advanced statistics in terms of coverage. And then they go out and get Josh Blackwell, corner from Duke, who is a return guy. I think they have a young group, and Howie said it the other day that they might view it a little higher than we see it. But right now, you have a ton of young bodies in there for the second cornerback position. You know it's probably going to be Marcus Epps and Anthony Harris as it stands. But what you could do outside of this is that tomorrow, or being today, we're recording on Sunday, but Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, all free agents that sign no longer count towards the compensatory pick formula.
Yep.
So I believe that we will see an influx of a few free agents here. I think Xavier Rhodes should be on the table. A couple people had mentioned Trey Waynes. I think that's, a guy who had a down year due to injury, was on the Eagles board that year when they were picking a cornerback. They didn't get to select him, though. I think you could bring a guy like that in, a veteran presence in that room with the rest of the young guys, and just say, hey, who's going to be the best one in this room to go and take that position? Because at corner, I feel a little bit better about competition letting it play out. Whereas safety, I still think you should go out and grab a guy like Jaquiski Tartt if you can.
He was my number one option if you can't.
Tyrann Mathieu absolutely should be on the table. And there was talk today.
He should be priority number one. The issue is, I guess, the Saints are aggressively pursuing him, and you've got competition there.
Yeah, but I think tomorrow should probably be a big step in the right direction. I believe that they would have waited until now to sign a guy. Like, they wouldn't have done it on Friday of last week. They'll just wait until Monday so they don't have to worry about the comp pick formula going against them. And I think the Eagles are in a position where they have open roster spots, and Howie Roseman said this thing's going to go until September. They're going to continue to try and add talent until September. And with the 2023 picks, Lou, let's say an opportunity arises like you just had with A.J. Brown, with, let's say, a younger defensive back in the league at safety, at corner. You look at the Chargers, maybe Nasir Adderley really isn't in their plans after they go out and draft yet again another one of my favorite safeties in J.T. Woods, just hypothetically. You got to make a call on somebody like that. I think there's a lot of young corners in the league that may be on the outs with their team. I think that's an avenue as well. But right now, Monday at 3 p.m., so today at 3 p.m., make sure you're tuned in, because I think there will be an influx of a lot of free agent signings all over the NFL, and the Eagles should be right there because they're not done. And this Howie Roseman mold, it's a 24/7 cycle, 365 days a year. He just doesn't say, okay, we signed our UDFAs, we're done until after OTAs when people start to cut people. Like, no, their pro department is continually scouting to see how they can get better.
It is tough, though.
They're not going to sit on their hand. Oh,
when you look at the options, it's, there isn't a lot left out there. And so you got to hope that the front seven this year can really carry the load. You do have Darius Slay and Avonte Maddox can protect a weaker CB2, kind of like Steven Nelson was last year. But again, when you combine not really having an impact CB2, not having a great tandem of safeties, there are some rough spots still on this defensive side of the football. So again, that's more of a long-term thing now, Gino. I think, there's not really a quick fix. Unless you sign Honey Badger, that's a really impactful player that you can get in the month of May. So hopefully you are more aggressive with Mathieu than you've been, in past years with those kind of free agents, guys in their 30s. I do think that is a key move I want to see happen this month. But again, there's going to be competition, so that's going to be tough. He is from Louisiana. He played at LSU, so they've got that. The Saints have a pretty good roster right now in front of them. But, Gino, I will say, after this past draft class,
Wait a second. What quarterback would you rather play with?
I don't know. It's a kind of a wash to me, but Gino, what I was gonna say is it's like 4A, 4B, man. Like Winston and Hurts, neither one are recruiting a guy. Well, I shouldn't say that though, because Hurts did help get AJ Brown, but that's gonna help, Gino. Like this past draft class does make the Eagles, I think, more attractive to not only like we talk quarterbacks in 2023, if another like a Lamar Jackson ever became available on the open trade market, but it makes you more sexy for a free agent like Tyrann Mathieu too. So, hopefully that they can be in on that, because that's the most impactful you could make move you can make right now.
Yeah, I think if you're going to look at the whole landscape of the NFL as it stands, the NFC is wide open. I mean, even Green Bay, they lose Devontae Adams. Seahawks, they lose Russell Wilson. Who knows what's going on with the Niners right now with the whole Debo situation. Arizona, we know they're going to be good. The Rams are going to be good. Tampa's going to be good. But outside of those teams, I mean, Dallas has the potential to take a step back. Outside of that, the Eagles have a fair chance coming off of a playoff run last year, only getting better than they were.
I feel a lot better about it now, man. Like this past draft, I think this team can compete for the division now. And again, I'm never going to be sold on a Super Bowl contender type of status until you have a franchise quarterback. But with the pieces you added again this weekend, like you said, on top of the conference being wide open and the division being shaky right now, like I do think Washington's a better football team now than they were last year. But yeah, I'm not really like terrified of the outlook the Eagles have in front of them this season. So, it's going to be fun to see how they continue to put this thing together throughout the summer. And yeah, I think you feel a lot better now heading into a playoff situation. If they had to play a team like Tampa Bay again or LA, that they're not going to just get completely mauled. And that was the feeling last year. So that's definitely a big step in the right direction. Gino, I want to get into day 3 of the draft coming up next. Take a look at some of the picks they made, the undrafted free agents as well. You really like some of the guys they brought in. I think it could be very impactful. As it's been in past years, the Eagles have kind of made their money on day 3 of the draft. So we'll get into it coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
And the Eagles offseason goes all the way into the summer. And speak of summer, I mean, it's coming up real soon, and you're going to be on the go. You're going to be going to the beach. You're probably going to be taking road trips. So what do? If you're hungry, you order some Built Bars. You put them in your trunk. You keep them on you all the time. I literally have a box for food in the back of my car. I know that is such a fat kid thing to say, but here in Colorado, you go up to the mountains, never know if you're going to get stuck, always have to be prepared. So I always keep a bunch of Built Bars on me, especially with the summer coming up. You want to look good. You want to feel healthy. You don't want to be eating all that candy, all that fatty food. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Not only do they focus on taste before anything, but at the same time, they're incredibly nutritious, up to 170 calories per bar, 4 grams of net carbs, 4 grams of sugar, and up to 17 grams of protein in any bar. They have their delicious puff flavors, which include their churro flavor. I highly suggest it. It has marshmallows on the inside, and it is covered in chocolate and any delicious flavor that you want. You can go and get any of their assorted flavors. You could get the assorted flavor box or go and order your favorite. Mine is mint brownie. Lou loves his peanut butter. And go today and make sure you order any of their flavors: banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. Use this offer at built.com, locked15. That's locked, LOCKED 15 to get 15% off your order at builtbar.com. Go and get them today. We're always eating them here at the Locked On Eagles podcast, and they really keep us fueled here at the Locked On Podcast Network.
All right, Eagles fans, Louis DiBiase and Gino Camilleri wrapping up this Monday edition of the show, taking another look back at the 2022 NFL Draft now that it has officially concluded. The Eagles making 5 picks, but they spent a first-round pick and a third on A.J. Brown, so you got to count him as the sixth player in this class. You added a 24-year-old elite wide receiver on top of Jordan Davis on day one. Center Cam Jurgens in the second round from Nebraska. Nakobe Dean, the Georgia linebacker, in the third round. And then on day three, they take Tyrann Johnson, the outside linebacker from Kansas. They take Grant Calcaterra? Right? Calcaterra, the tight end from SMU. And then you look at what they did with the undrafted free agents. I don't know, man. I almost like the moves they made there than on day three. I really like Josh Jobe from Alabama, Mario Goodrich from Clemson, and Carson Strong. Look, I know this guy's knee is held together with Elmer's glue and Scotch tape, and he's got the mobility of a complete dump truck. But that kind of arm talent, if he can at least develop into your long-term QB2, Gardner Minshew leaves, you get a good comp pick there or a trade, and that's a long-term player on a cheap contract that you can have with that kind of arm. Like some of the throws he made, again, it's special. If he had the mobility, if he did not have the injury history, with that arm talent, he might be a day one, day two pick. So the fact that you got him undrafted, we know how much the Eagles value having backup quarterbacks. He has the potential to develop, I'm not saying into your quarterback, but into your long-term, QB2.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who could come off the bench and win one or two games.
Right. I trust him to throw it, like he has the arm talent to say, I'm not capped here. He can throw
it.
Yeah,
just go and throw it 15 yards down the field to A.J. Brown.
And if I want to push the ball down the field, I know he can do it. I mean, even with those bad knees, he can, on his knees, he could probably throw it 65 yards down the field.
You know how much I loved Carson
That was
Strong
one of your my guys, man. That was your QB my guy.
I love Carson Strong. I love his arm talent. And to get him in this undrafted free agent pool, as well as the anti-Carson Strong and one of the most athletic quarterbacks in college, E.J. Perry out of Brown, I said it's probably going to be between these two guys going forward for your backup quarterback. I thought both of those guys could have legitimately have been drafted. And you got both of them in the free agent pool. I think one of my favorite free agents, Lou, Kennedy Brooks, coming out of Oklahoma today on, I think it was Arif Hassan of The Athletic. He did a difference between the consensus big board and where guys went. And Kennedy Brooks was one of the biggest steals according to that chart because he put up numbers at Oklahoma. Competition Factor, who is one of the advanced analytics companies that helps us at CGS, what they measure is college production. Kennedy Brooks was the fourth most productive running back coming out of this class. He was in the top 5 with names like Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. I think Kennedy Brooks is a legitimate pick up the pace type of back where Jordan Howard left off.
Well, in a running back, you take undrafted rookies and later picks way more serious than other positions, Gino. Everything matters later on. People chasing Kelsey is a Hall of Famer and he was a 6th round pick, but running back especially, we've seen it with Corey Clement and heck, even Josh Adams, that running back, you pay attention no matter where you get them because they can come from anywhere. So I agree. I definitely put weight into that move.
I put weight into getting productive running backs that produced at a high level in college. Because if you look at Corey Clement when he came out of Wisconsin, and you look at a guy like Josh Adams came out of Notre Dame, both of those guys had high levels of production in college, which shows that they could probably handle the load for what you're not asking for these guys to be starters, but you're asking them to be depth pieces if they are to be called upon. And you talked about liking this undrafted group as much as their day 2 picks or day 3 picks. Dude, Grant Calcaterra, that kid can scoot from the tight end position. You talk about a perfect complement to Dallas Goedert, now with Jack Stahl, now with Tyree Jackson as well, and you'll see what they get out of JJ. But now I think that move makes everybody in that room more efficient because Jack Stahl can go into that role that Brent Selleck was playing in 2017, where he was more of the blocking style guy. And then Grant Calcaterra is your Trey Burton. And then you have Dallas Goedert taking on your Zach Ertz. Grant Calcaterra is like your 10th passing option, and he put up crazy production with your quarterback at Oklahoma prior to when he retired from football to go be a firefighter to now come back and go to SMU. No, he had.
I'm just getting Danny. I hear fireman and boom, 20. He takes me back to 2011.
No, you saw Grant Calcaterra at the Senior Bowl, man. Like, he can legitimately play.
No, he can play in space, man. And I just wanted to come away with at least one tight end in this class because I thought it was really deep. So the fact that you did get one is good, and
they
he's got
didn't
more
use a
receiving
premium
ability.
pick on it either. Like, I would have loved Trey McBride, but I think
damn Dallas stole away Jake Ferguson on day 3. I was really hoping it could have happened.
I think you get the same type of I wouldn't say same type of player, but like same type of role that you would have had these guys in. They weren't going to come in and be your number 1 for Dallas Goedert. They were going to be a number 2 the whole time, but you did that with a day 3 selection. You got Kyron Johnson, who can now fill into that second to Hassan Riddick, who said he compares himself to Hassan Riddick, says he watches Hassan Riddick all the time. And then you have Patrick Johnson, who's that third guy in that spot now. I think each one of these selections makes the depth chart just that much better because guys aren't going to be pressing into positions where they probably shouldn't be playing. Like,
there's probably a petty aspect too. Back to the Carson Strong thing real quick. I'm just saying, if there is even a 0.1% chance that Howie Roseman's next franchise quarterback could be named Carson, I think he is willing to take that bet. So I'm just saying, I'm sure there was a petty aspect to that as well. But no, Gino, you're 100% right. I mean, you even look at the industry consensus, across the board at all, the major networks, draft analysts have the Eagles as the 3rd best draft, only behind the New York Jets and the Baltimore Ravens. So I think on paper, and again,
that's saying
all of this
something with
paper,
5 picks.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the haul Baltimore got in New York, and even Kansas City and Detroit killed it. I thought Tennessee, despite trading away AJ Brown, had a great class. The fact that you're number 3 there, and like you said, only came away with 5 picks. It's all on paper right now, but it looks pretty damn good on paper. This team looks extremely improved compared to just a week ago when we were doing this podcast. So we'll get into it more this week, Tuesday through Friday. Still got a show for you 4 times this week. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the show. All platforms available Monday through Friday. YouTube as well. We have all our videos being posted. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we're on Twitter at LockedOnBirds, at DiBiase, LOE, at GC24_football. By the way, guys, everybody shout out to all of the viewership, the listeners we had throughout this draft process. This weekend was so much fun. The live shows, the appearances on our Locked On live show, interacting with all of you guys on Twitter. Gino, it was... each year this keeps getting better and better. And I thought this was the most fun we've had, so far during a draft weekend. And it was because of our listeners for sure. And they killed this draft. So that helps.
Yeah. I mean, this was just fun for all of us, and anybody who maybe it was your first time listening to us this past weekend. Thank you for joining us. If it's somebody who's on your 4th year following us here on the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On Eagles, we love you just as much as we do anybody else who's ever tuned in. And it all comes down to everybody who watches us, who subscribes to our YouTube page, which put up crazy numbers this week, put up crazy numbers last month. And we're doing 5 shows a week. Like, to just say that people are tuning in to hear us every single day, and then it culminates at our Super Bowl at the draft. It was just an awesome 72 hours just having that interaction, and especially with this class, to just feel the genuine joy that I think everybody in Philadelphia kind of walked away with having it. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely a buzz.
Man, like I said on the show, the Eagles are back, man. Like, that feeling. Remember when I said, like, expectations are when this sport becomes fun and it sucks at the same time? Those expectations are back, Lou. Like, now I expect a lot out of this team.
I do too.
It didn't take one draft to fix this team. It's taken multiple drafts, and it's going to take another year.
I was going to say, and they're not done.
Picks.
Yeah,
but
now the heat is on. The expectations are not only on this team, but it's on their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. And if not, they got 2 first-round picks they conserved for 2023. That'll do it for today's edition of the show. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading, thank you for watching and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.